हेलो एवरीवन। वेलकम टू स्टडी वाइब्स विद ऐश। तो ये मेरी दूसरी वीडियो है और जैसा कि मैंने पहली वीडियो में जो कि MPS2 की एक थीमेटिक एनालिसिस मैंने की थी, मैंने आपको बोला था कि अगली वीडियो में मैं हर एक कोर्स की MPS यानी कि मास्टर ऑफ पॉलिटिकल साइंस के जितने भी पेपर्स हैं उन सब के क्वेश्चन और आंसर्स के फॉर्मेट में वीडियोस में तैयार करूँगी। सो दिस इज़ द फर्स्ट वन इन दैट पर्टिकुलर सीरीज़ और दूसरी लेक्चर सीरीज़ है, ठीक है। सो दिस इज़ अबाउट MPS पॉलिटिकल पॉलिटिकल थियरी MPS1। तो इसके जो भी मतलब थीमेटिक एनालिसिस है उसकी वीडियो मैंने ऑलरेडी अपलोड कर चुकी है। तो अगर किसी को इफ़ यू वांट टू गेट लार्जर ओवरव्यू तो आप वो वाली वीडियो भी देख सकते हैं। इस वाली वीडियो में आई विल बी टारगेटिंग दो स्पेसिफिक एरियाज और उन्हीं के आंसर फॉर्मेट में आपको मतलब कैसे लिखना है वो भी आपको बता के जाऊँगी, ठीक है। सो दैट इज़ दिस वन। देन 1 second. ओके, सो दीज आर दी स्पेसिफिकेशंस, यानी कि एग्ज़ाम जो है वो 3 घंटे की है, मैक्सिमम मार्क्स इज़ 400 और हमें करीबन, मुझे ज़ुकाम हो गया तो बीच में ऐसी आवाज़ आपको सुनाई देगी। 5 क्वेश्चंस ही हमें आंसर करने हैं, एटलीस्ट 2 फ्रॉम ईच सेक्शन। सो यानी कि यू कैन टेक 3 फ्रॉम सेक्शन ए एंड 2 फ्रॉम सेक्शन बी और वाइस वर्सा, जो भी कर सकते हो। मैक्सिमम अराउंड 500 वर्ड्स ईच और हर एक क्वेश्चन को आपको 20 मार्क्स के हिसाब से आंसर करना है, ठीक है। सो लेट्स मूव टू द फर्स्ट एरिया। सो जो कि मैंने ऑलरेडी डिस्कस किया हुआ है, दैट इज़ थीम 1 पॉलिटिकल थियरी, नेचर, स्कोप्स एंड टाइप्स, ठीक है। तो शुरुआत है मीनिंग एंड नेचर ऑफ पॉलिटिकल थियरी। ओके, so political theory is one of the foundational branches of political science. It studies political ideas, institutions, values and processes to understand how societies are organized, governed and evaluated. यानी कि so you can prepare an introduction. See, we have to write for around 500 words. यानी कि it is mandatory or understood and it is also a evaluation if you add an intro and conclusion. The introduction में you can start with saying पॉलिटिकल थियरी इज़ वन ऑफ द फाउंडेशनल एरियाज ऑफ पॉलिटिकल साइंस। तो उस पर क्या करते हैं, पॉलिटिकल आइडियाज़, इंस्टीट्यूशंस, वैल्यूज़, प्रोसेसेस, इन सब के बारे में इट स्टडीज़ in all of these, in ideas, institutions, values, processes. What is the point of studying all of these things? ताकि societies कैसे organize होती है, governed होती है या evaluate किए जाते हैं, all of these things are analyzed. Now, it provides both explanatory and normative standards. So, political theory का purpose is क्या है? To give an explanatory frameworks as to how these institutions work. दूसरी चीज़ क्या है? Normative standards. यानी कि what is the standard way of in which a political system should work and or why is a political system working in this way. While politics deals with practical governance, political theory engages with the ideas behind governance. तो जो चीज़ हम मतलब आम जिंदगी में भी यूज़ द टर्म वर्ड पॉलिटिक्स। ना पॉलिटिक्स का मतलब क्या होता है, जो एक्ट ऑफ गवर्नेंस, यानी कि जो हम फॉर एग्जांपल अगर आप एक गवर्नमेंट को ले तो गवर्नमेंट जो कर रही है उसको हम पॉलिटिक्स बोलते हैं, लाइक द पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट। बट व्हाट इज़ द थियरी बिहाइंड और व्हाट इज़ द रीजनिंग बिहाइंड दीज पर्टिकुलर पॉलिसीज़। जैसे कि अगर वो कोई वेलफेयर स्कीम ला रही है तो उसका आइडिया क्या है, तो उस चीज़ को एनालाइज करने के लिए वी नीड पॉलिटिकल थियरी। वो स्कीम के बारे में व्हेन वी डायरेक्टली डील विद इट देन इट इज़ व्हाट इट इज़ पार्ट ऑफ पॉलिटिक्स, ठीक है। सो इट्स बोथ इंटेलेक्चुअल एंड प्रैक्टिकल। सो व्हाट इज़ द नीड फॉर हैविंग दिस? पहली चीज़ तो इट गिव्स एन एक्सप्लेनेशन एज टू व्हाई द पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम इज वर्किंग इन दिस वे, and on the other side it also explains how did they arrive at this particular point. What is the meaning of political theory? So, firstly, systematic study of political ideas. Political theory investigates concepts such as state, power, liberty, justice, equality, rights, and democracy. So, it aims to give a conceptual clarity and logical coherence to these ideas. For example, इसैया बर्लिन की जो लिबर्टी की डेफिनेशन है वो कैसे टी.एच. ग्रीन की लिबर्टी से डिफर करती है. सो उस तरीके की आइडियोलॉजी को या पावर स्ट्रक्चर को या वट एवर कॉन्सेप्ट्स आर देयर इन पॉलिटिक्स, उन सब को हम स्टडी करते हैं. दैट्स वन मीनिंग ऑफ पॉलिटिकल थियरी. Second meaning is how it works as normative in nature. So it addresses questions like what should be the ideal state, मतलब how should the government work, यानी कि जो चीज़ होनी चाहिए उसके बारे में, और what constitutes justice. So it prescribes how political institutions ought to function. Normative का मतलब होता है कि कैसे करनी चाहिए उस हिसाब से. For example, Rawls' theory of justice. It proposes fairness as the basis of institutions. So that again comes under political theory. तो हमने अभी भी क्या देखा? We saw what political theory is. It is both explanatory and normative in nature. It is a foundation of political science. और explanatory कैसे होती है? It analyzes every concept in politics, be it state, power, liberty, justice, equality, rights and democracy. If you want to add, you can also add. ये वाले एग्जाम्पल आप ऐड कर सकते हो, बट इन दिस पर्टिकुलर केस इवन इफ यू डोंट ऐड इट्स फाइन. सी, मैं ये मानती हूँ कि बिकॉज दिस इज़ एन एग्जाम दैट इज़ रिटन बाय लॉट ऑफ पीपल, अगर हम एक इंट्रो कंक्लूशन के साथ साथ जहाँ कहीं भी अगर आप एग्जाम्पल डाल सकते हो, देन इट लीड्स ऑन टू मोर वैल्यूज टू योर आंसर. ठीक है. Now the third one is explanatory and analytical. Political theory also evaluates existing institutions and political behavior. For example, behavioralism uses surveys and statistical methods to explain voting patterns. So, explanatory कैसे होती है? The existing institutions और उसकी political behavior को analyze करती है. उसका example है behavioralism. So, जो existing institutions है उनके बारे में भी होती है, and an example for that is behavioralism. Then philosophical and ethical foundation. So it draws from the moral philosophy to determine right and wrong forms of political action. So what is the right and wrong forms? For example, Gandhian non-violence. ठीक है. Now what is the nature of political theory? So what are अभी तक हमने जो देखा, that was the explanation. Systemic analysis, normative standards, explanatory and analytical, and philosophical and ethical foundation. Now what is the nature of political theory? Firstly, it is interdisciplinary because it borrows from history, economics, psychology, and law. For example, Marxism integrates what? Economics with politics. So it is multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary. Then it is value-laden. It has normative values like what? Equality, liberty, justice, human dignity. It is dynamic and evolving. यानी कि it changes. With time, it sort of changes. As society changes, the political theory also evolves. For example, digital technology led to new debates on surveillance and data rights. So, political theory के questions भी क्या है? They also develop, or they reach new heights as developments happen in other fields, which means it's not fixed, it's dynamic. Then abstract yet practical. It's abstract, which means you cannot necessarily, आप उसको touch नहीं कर सकते, it sort of exists. But it is the framework within which constitutions, laws and institutions are made. The best example for that is Indian Constitution. अब Indian Constitution is not a book. There are a set of laws in it. और उसी law के चलते ही क्या है? हमारी जितनी भी thought process है, हमारे जो भी laws है, even new laws, which may not be directly mentioned, come up based on this constitutional values. Then it is critical and reflective. यानी कि it questions the dominant structures. जो भी चीज़ें exist हो रही है society में, उसको question किया जाता है. जैसे कि feminist theory questions what? Patriarchy. So firstly we saw what is the meaning of political theory. उस पे क्या क्या आता है? Systemic study of political ideas. It is normative in nature. Then it's explanatory and analytical. Then it is also the philosophical and ethical foundation. Then along with that, we also saw the nature of political theory, which is interdisciplinary, value-laden, dynamic and evolving, and abstract yet practical. critical and reflective. ठीक है? So these are the two aspects of what? Political theory. Then comes a conclusion. Political theory provides the intellectual foundation for understanding, evaluating political life. Again, it is an intellectual foundation. It clarifies the concepts, informs public debate, guides policy making, and helps citizens critically examine structures of power and authority. So, what is the purpose of political theory? It would lack direction, coherence, and political grounding. Okay? So, it is sort of like the backbone for political theory. So, that's about the meaning and nature of political theory. Okay? Okay. Now, the second question is features of modern political theory. Modern political theory emerged predominantly in 19th and 20th centuries, which was a response to what? Industrialization, capitalism, rise of mass democracy, scientific developments, and global conflicts. It shifted the focus of political analysis from philosophical speculation to scientific inquiry, while retaining concern for values such as justice and freedom. Modern political theory is marked by methodological innovation, ideological diversification, and global relevance. यानी कि जो 19th और 20th centuries में whatever came about, that is known as the modern political theory. उसमें क्या difference हुआ? It shifted to scientific inquiry while also maintaining concern for values. Earlier it was more philosophical. And this modern political theory has what? Methodological innovations are there, diversifications, and also global relevance. Now, what are the main features? Firstly, scientific orientation. Modern theory emphasizes empirical research using surveys, statistics, experiments, and observational studies. For example, voting behavior studies in the US. That happened because of scientific orientation. That you should have some sort of empirical research values. तो उसके वो कैसे, how can we collect empirical research through surveys, statistics, or experiments? Then interdisciplinary approach. It is a combination of multiple disciplines like sociology behaves में, psychology है, economics होती है. For example, Samuel Huntington's theory of political development. वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ politics पे ही नहीं है. It's also dependent on what? Sociology. Sociology का क्या मतलब? For example, class relation कैसे, caste कैसे, या gender का how it works in a particular society, then psychology in terms of attitude, personality, economics ka in terms of resource distribution. Then focus on power and decision making. The modern theory sees power a central category of political analysis. For example, Robert Dahl's concept of polyarchy or C. Wright Mill's power elite. So, power becomes a central theme in modern political theory because it is based on this power that people are acting in certain ways. मतलब जो भी governing body हो या whoever is in power or to maintain that power, politics is used. Then interest in political behavior. Rather than, abstract theories of state, it started becoming more interested in how individuals and groups actually behave. Behavior पे ज़्यादा focus होने लगी. So the research is on political participation, voting, leadership, and public opinion, which are all aspects that sort of influence political theory, right? Or politics or the working of a state itself. Then rational and secular perspective. Modern political theory reduces reliance on divine or metaphysical explanations and emphasizes what? Rationality and secularism. Earlier it was more of theory. अगर आप पुराने जो political theory के चीज़ें हैं वो आप पढ़ोगे, then we'll see that it's more of theories जिसका application भी किसी को पता न चले. Right now it's more on secular aspects and more rational. For example, Weber की rational legal authority. Then the critical and ideological diversity. There are various ideologies which are being re-evaluated in political systems. It could be Marxism, feminism, liberalism, environmentalism, pluralism, कुछ भी. And the best example for that is feminist critique of public-private divide. उससे क्या होता है? This rereading or reanalysis sort of gives newer, it brings to light the old biases that were not unearthed earlier. For example, feminist critique of public-private divide से क्या पता चला कि gender bias कैसे work कर रही है even in liberal democracies. Then concern for equality, rights and justice. So all of these things, like, these are all very individual things, right? And it all came about as part of 19th and 20th century. So social justice, welfare policies, human rights, self-development in A, but the humanitarian aspect of it also becomes important. For example, Rawls' theory of justice, sense capability approach. Global and comparative orientation. Modern scholars compare political systems to understand patterns of development and democratization. So comparative studies जो हो रही है on democratic transitions in Latin America and Asia. So what were we dealing with? What was our topic? Our topic was features of modern political theory. पहले हमने देखा कि political theory क्या है, उसकी nature क्या है. Now what are the main features of modern political theory? It's scientific, then it is interdisciplinary, it focuses on power and decision making, political behavior per importance hai, it is rational and secular, then it's critical and ideologically diverse, then it concerns with equality, rights and justice, then it's also global and comparative, because ये सब जो है आज के ज़माने की यानी कि 19th और 20th century के बाद ही हुई है. So because everything is global right now, so even development or democracy, all of these things have become, global. So how these transitions happen? Now for a conclusion, you can say something like modern political theory expands the scope of political analysis. अब इस modern theory के क्या purpose है? जो पुराने theory है उनके जो scope है उसको it sort of makes it bigger. It not only explains political behavior but also offers framework. And जो पुराने theories थे उससे political behavior पता चलता था. Now even framework for justice, equality and democratic governance भी पता चलती है. Its interdisciplinary, empirical and critical character makes it central to understanding contemporary politics. Now the distinction between political theory, political philosophy and political. So ये तीनों चीज़ें, political theory हो, political philosophy हो, political science, they're often used, interchangeably. लेकिन इन तीनों का जो मतलब है, it's very unique. So the differences lie in their purpose, method, subject matter and orientation. So इसीलिए इनका meaning जानने से क्या होता है? We will have a better understanding of political inquiry. So first one is political theory. Conceptual and analytical. So it analyzes concepts, political concepts like liberty, justice, power and democracy. It is a bridge between philosophy and science. Because it's a theory. So theory is a bridge between what? Philosophical reasoning and science. It's normative and empirical, yani ki what should be and what is. An example would be Rawls' theory of justice, which is normative. Behavioral study of voting, that is empirical. Now then, political philosophy. Philosophy deals with moral and ethical questions. So it's about the questions about ideal state or moral foundations like Plato's or Aristotle's virtues. So it's about what? The questions. Prescriptive and normative. So it's more about moral judgment. Then abstract and speculative because it's philosophical. So it is very difficult to find uska ek base pata chalna is very difficult. Now what are the questions at rest? What is justice? What makes authority legitimate? And what is the best form of government? So, जो political philosophy है, वो ज़्यादातर क्या होती है? It's more idealistic, it's more normative and judgment based, and it's more speculative and more like, what ought to be. Like you're trying to achieve it. Then political science. It is a discipline. So it's a combination of systematic and scientific methods. It includes observation, surveys, statistics and all. It's a study of institutions and process like government, elections, parties, public policy, constitutions. All of these things have been analyzed. Then it's descriptive and explanatory. It analyzes how politics works rather than how it should be. So political science जब आप लेते हो तो उस वाले सब्जेक्ट में क्या डिफरेंस होता है? Theory is what prescribes how it should work. Philosophy is what we are hoping to achieve. Political science is the actual functioning, sort of an analytical way in which we are trying to analyze how it is working rather than how it should be. For example, let's say electoral studies की analysis करना, policy analysis, public administration research, ये सब, all of these things are what we are doing, political science analysis. Now what are the key differences in terms of orientation? Political philosophy is moral or ethical, theory जो है वो conceptual है, political science is more scientific because you have facts to back it. Then what are the methods? Philosophy में it's more of reasoning, theory is conceptual analysis and then interpretation. Political science we'll have facts. आपके पास data होगा. अगर आप voting analysis करनी हो then you will have a data. Then what is the focus? Philosophy में ideals, theory में its concepts. Political science, the focus is on institutions. We focus on the state, the government, the authorities like say prime minister, president, how they work, what are their functions, all of those things. So political philosophy, political theory and political science represent three interconnected yet distinct approaches to studying politics. ये तीनों ही politics से ही related है. Philosophy provides the normative foundations, theory offers the conceptual clarity and political science gives the empirical understanding. So एक से हमें क्या पता चलता है how the foundation is or what should be the foundation. The second one gives the concept behind this. Political science gives the actual analysis or how it actually functions. So ये तीनों चीज़ें together contributes to political life. Okay. Next one is normative versus empirical political theory. So we have been having these discussions कि normative, empirical. तो ये दोनों चीज़ें क्या है? Political theory can broadly be divided into normative and empirical traditions. तो इनकी क्या differences है? It's in purpose, approach and outcomes. Normative political theory focuses on how political life ought to be. Empirical theory का मतलब है as they are, which is what we are dealing in political science. So one is idealistic, how it should have been. The other one is how it actually exists. And these two sort of helps us in understanding the different methods in which we can study politics. So normative political theory. Firstly, it's value oriented. Normative theory is grounded in moral and ethical judgments about politics. So it prescribes, the ideals like justice, liberty, equality and all of that. For example, Rawls, justice as fairness. That is a normative method because it's more on ethical and moral aspects. Then it's concerned with ideal and standards. The ideal form of state, society or governance. For example, Plato's king is an ideal ruler. Then philosophical and logical reasoning. It uses arguments, logic and reasoning rather than data. Libertarianism builds on philosophical arguments. That is the basis of normative method. Then what are the questions? For example, what is justice? What should be the role of state? What rights should citizens have? Like what ought to be? यानी कि अभी क्या हो रहा है, यानी कि क्या होनी चाहिए. Then influence on institutions. Normative ideas shape institutions, laws and rights discourse. Example is ideas of liberty from Locke and Mill influence the constitutional democracy. ठीक है, तो this is all about what the normative methods. They are value oriented, they're concerned with the ideal and standards, it's philosophical, then the questions that are being addressed, then anyhow it influence the institutions. Then empirical political theory is more descriptive. It studies the observable political behavior like voting, participation, decision making, etc. So when you study the voter turnout, it will explain why some demographics want more. Then based on evidence and data, it uses surveys, statistics, experiments and interviews. For example, behavioralism revolutionized political science with data-driven methods. So data is very significant to empirical political theory. It is focusing on what is rather than what ought to be. It explains how political institutions actually work. So then how they influence policy making. It is interdisciplinary, draws from psychology, sociology and economics. In the normative method, it is singularly on political philosophy. Political psychology is about authoritarian personality traits, for example. Then comes, what are the questions addressed? How do voters behave? what factors influence political participation, how do institutions function in practice, all of these things. Now what is the difference? Normative is more values, empirical is more facts. What is the method? Normative is based on reasoning, empirical is based on observation, because you have observational values out there. What in terms of outcome? Normative sets the standard. It analyzes all of these things and states that ऐसे करनी चाहिए. Empirical gives an explanation as to why this is working in this way. So it provides a moral direction, while empirical theory supplies the factual understanding. So together they present a holistic picture, how politics operates, while the other proposes how it should ideally function. Now, what is the use of or importance of studying political theory? हम आखिर ये पढ़ी क्यों रहे हैं? Why are we wasting? आप ये video क्यों देख रही है? All of these questions. So it is indispensable for understanding political life. It equips individuals with the intellectual tools to analyze political institutions, evaluate policies, and participate meaningfully in democratic processes. तो importance क्या है? पहली चीज़ तो analyze करने के लिए, second evaluate करने के लिए, third to participate meaningfully. Far from being abstract, it shapes the foundations of constitutions, rights, justice, and governance. So theory of politics, यानी कि political theory जो है, it's not merely abstract, it gains a momentum and it becomes a foundational stone for all the aspects related to political life. So clarification of political concepts. Political theory defines and refines fundamental ideas such as liberty, equality, justice, citizenship, and power. For example, Berlin's distinction between positive and negative liberty clarifies debates about state intervention. So it gives a definition and also refines the fundamental ideas. So it clarifies जो भी concepts है उसको clarity दे देती है. Second point is it gives moral and ethical guidance. It offers the values and principles to judge the political actions. Example, Gandhian ethics. That will give a moral standard for political conduct and protest. Then third one is political institution को evaluate करती है. Whether these institutions are fair, democratic and just. For example, Rawls theory. It helps to evaluate whether the social policies benefit the disadvantaged. Now helps to understand the political process. It explains how states function, how power operates, and how decisions are made. For example, pluralist theory shows how different groups influence policies. So, what is the idea? Then shapes the constitution and public policy. Constitutional values such as liberty, equality, justice, and rights are rooted in theoretical debates. For example, the Indian Constitution reflects all the principles. Now, critical thinking को encourage करती है. Questioning authority, tradition, power structures, etc. For example, feminist theory. It enhances democratic citizenship because an informed citizenry is crucial for democracy, and political theory empowers individuals to make enlightened political choices. Individuals जो है वो ज़्यादा बेहतर decisions ले पाएंगे. Then to address the contemporary issues, it provides a framework for issues like digital surveillance, climate politics, identity politics, global inequality. Example, post-colonial theory, जो कि was very modern. The theory sort of gave the framework for all of these issues. So now for conclusion. So studying political theory is vital for intellectual clarity, democratic participation, ethical political judgment, and social transformation. It enables citizens to understand their rights, responsibilities, and the functioning of institutions, making democracy more meaningful. So what are the points? Why we study political theories? First one, it clarifies the political concepts. It provides moral and ethical guidance. Then it evaluates the political institutions. Then helps to understand political processes. Then it shapes the constitutions and public policy. Then it encourages critical thinking. Then it enhances democratic citizenship. Then it addresses contemporary issues. Okay, now the next one is challenges before political theory. तो पहले हमने देखा कि political theory क्या है, उसका nature क्या है. What is modern political theory? That also we saw. Then what did we see? Then we saw distinction between theory, philosophy and political science. उसके बाद हमने देखा normative and empirical political theory. Then we saw importance of studying political theory, which is all of these things. Evaluate political institutions to help understand political process, to shape constitutions and public policy, encourage critical thinking, enhance democratic citizenship, address contemporary issues, etc. Now the last one, what is the challenges before political theory in a globalized world? What are the newer challenges? So globalization has dramatically reshaped politics, economics, culture and society. So therefore, globalization की वजह से we have newer issues like migration, inequality, environmental crisis, identity, conflicts, etc. So they demand fresh responses. Traditional frameworks developed for nation states need to adapt to these complexities. So उसमें पहली challenge क्या है? Declining authority of the nation state. It weakens the sovereignty of nation states because international institutions or multinational corporations and global markets, these have become more important. So the challenge is it will have to rethink what sovereignty as well as governance beyond borders. Then identity politics. Ethnic, religious, gender, caste and regional identities have become central. For example, Black Lives Matter is actually, it originated in US, लेकिन वो सिर्फ US की ही issue नहीं है. So it's an identity based injustice. So the theory should also accommodate multiculturalism and intersectionality. Then global inequality. Inequality between and within nation, they have only been increasing. Example is that global north and global south divide. So there should be new frameworks for global justice, like cosmopolitanism. Then environmental and climate crisis. It is one of the major issues, right? And that affects sovereignty, rights and development. For example, rising sea level leads to climate refugees. Now, it is because of environmental, लेकिन ये लोग refugee बन जाते हैं. अब वो climate refugees है, लेकिन उसका solution किस पे है? It's not in environment, it's in political science. So that becomes a global issue. So it should also integrate sustainability. The technological surveillance and AI governance. Digital technologies have brought in issues related to privacy, data rights and algorithmic bias. For example, states या जो बड़ी corporations है, they can do mass surveillance. So political theory must redefine liberty, consent and accountability. Then migration and citizenship. This mass migration leads to, like, it sort of annihilates the classical notions of citizenship, which is tied to territory. Right now, people keep traveling, right? Sometimes, we have a lot of people who are migrating to other nations and all of that. So that leads to questions of citizenship. Is it simply tied to a territory or not? And also about the rights of refugees and migrants. Then erosion of democratic values. Populism, authoritarianism and misinformation. All of these things threaten democracy. So political theory must revive discussions on deliberation, civic education and democratic institutions. Then cultural homogenization and cultural revival. Globalization spreads the dominant cultures. Now, उससे क्या होता है? जो local identities है, that might get submerged or that might become forgotten. So there should be a balance between global and the local, or the cultural diversity must be preserved. So in a globalized world, political theory must adapt to new realities while upholding principles of justice, democracy and human dignity. It must respond to global challenges like inequality, climate change, technological power and identity conflicts. While offering new frameworks, at the same time, it should also enable in transforming the world. So what are the newer challenges that we are facing? First is global inequality. Then identity-based politics. Then authority of nation state, that is declining. It is becoming more multinational in nature or institutionalized. Then environmental and climate crisis. technological issues like surveillance or AI issues, then migration and citizenship, because a lot of people, like we keep hearing that, you know, itne sare refugees hai, they can't go back to their original territory, so then, but they don't get a citizenship from the new land, so then what do? Then erosion of democratic values due to authoritarianism and misinformation. Then cultural homogenization versus cultural revival. Okay, so these are all in theme 1, that is political theory. Okay, now I think I'll end the video here with theme 1, and I'll add, you know, each theme a separate video so that, you know, the video मतलब आप सुन भी सके और आपको उसका यूज़ भी हो. ठीक है? Okay, so thank you everyone. Keep supporting me, और आगे भी ऐसी वीडियोस आएंगे, उसको भी आप देखें, and do like, share and subscribe the channel. So like I just said, thanks for watching. Like, share, comment, subscribe the channel, और मुझे बताना कि you know आपको किस तरीके की प्रेजेंटेशन चाहिए. सो ये वाली जो वीडियो है, इसमें मैंने जो पहला जो थीम है, यानी कि पॉलिटिकल थियोरी से रिलेटेड जितने भी क्वेश्चंस रिपीटेडली पूछे जाते हैं, दे हैव बीन आंसर्ड, और हर एक थीम का जितना हो सके आई विल बी पुटिंग फॉर द वीडियोस. आप वो देखिए और यही पढ़ के जाइए. अब हाँ, वो पॉइंट फॉर्मेट में इसलिए दिया गया है ताकि आपको याद रखने में ईजी हो, बट इफ़ यू राइट दीज पॉइंट्स डाउन यू विल गेट अ गुड मार्क, लाइक अबव 80, जो कि एक अच्छी स्कोर है. मैं 100% मार्क्स तो यू नो आई कांट प्रॉमिस, और आपको भी पता है कि वो पॉसिबल नहीं है, लेकिन ये जितने भी सवाल हैं इन्हीं में से पूछा जाएगा. ओके, सो थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग. डू लाइक, शेयर, comments and subscribe the channel. Bye bye.